Welcome to another legal talk here on eRadio, and today it's nice to chat again to Jaco Hamman from Hahn Hahn Attorneys. We'll be discussing legal disputes in the construction industry. Jaco, it's been a while. Welcome back.
Hi, Ian. Thank you very much. Nice to be back. It's always nice talking to you.
Yes, absolutely. Likewise. So, Jaco, what does construction law entail?
Yeah, so let me just give you a bit of background. I've realized sometimes we take things for granted, and I was thinking that if I talk about construction law, because I do it every day, everyone knows what it entails. And then the other day somebody comes and he says, I see this construction law that you do. What is it? What is it actually? So I thought, you know what, maybe let's start the today's discussion of just tell the listeners what it all entails. Now, construction law is in essence anything that has to do with building, whether it's the bigger developments where you've got a 15-story flat that's being built, or whether you've got a townhouse complex, or whether there's renovations. All of those disputes and contracts that is dealt with, that is an all-encompassing that we call construction law.
Okay, and then what is a JBCC contract?
So in the construction industry, you've got standardized contracts, and JBCC is one of those standardized contracts. Now, you might have heard people saying that they want to go and buy a template contract, and I remember back in the days when CNA was still there. And they would say, well, go buy yourself a CNA contract. Now, this is sort of a CNA contract on steroids. Now, the people of JBCC will probably crucify me if I compare them to a CNA contract, but it's a standardized contract in the construction industry. And the reason why it's standardized is that construction on its own is already so complex. And it's got so many details. The last thing that you want is different contracts that can be interpreted in different ways. So you've got your standard clauses in the contracts, and then you've got the contract data, what they call on the side, and that contract data contains the variables. So JBCC has the same dispute resolution clauses. So if somebody comes to me in a construction dispute, the first thing I ask them, I say, what type of contract do you have? Do you have a JBCC contract? If he says yes, then without even looking at it, I already know what the clauses are. And the upside for that as well is that the interpretation of that contract is a lot easier because courts would have already ruled on it because it's a standardized contract. Now, just on the interpretation of contracts, just to give an idea. So, if you've got the same contract and you've got two people reading that contract, a lot of times the interpretation of those words differ depending on who you ask. So, if you've got a contract that the courts have already ruled on what the interpretation of that clause is, it means that your disputes lessen. And that makes a massive difference in costs and how to proceed.
Okay, and any other standardized contracts in the construction industry, Jaco?
Yes, yeah. So let me just say JBCC is a South African contract. So it's the Joint Building Contractors Committee who prepared this contract. And then you've got FIDIC, which is the international suite of contracts. You've got NEC. There was the old one, NEC 3. The newer one is NEC 4. And then you've got GCC, a lot of acronyms I know. And then you've got PROXA, which is for the professional. So there's quite a few of these, what they call suite of contracts. Now, let me just explain what a suite of contract is. So in your, let's take JBCC for argument's sake, because that's the one that is mostly used in South Africa, you would have a minor works contract. So that contract is normally used for construction where that which you're building or renovating is more or less than R1 million. So then it's a shorter, simpler contract. Then you've got various other types of contract in the JBCC, and the same with FIDIC. FIDIC, for argument's sake, has got a red book, a blue book, a yellow book, and a silver book, and so there's various types of contracts in it.
Okay, so is it not better to have my own contract instead of using a standardized contract, Jaco?
So generally, my first answer to that is to say no. It's better to have a standardized contract than to have your own type of contract drawn up. Now, and the reason for that is like I said previously, because it has in fact been tested. That being said, we have clients that says that the specific contract doesn't cater for all their needs and there might be other reasons. Now again, my first point of call is then in that contract data to rather change it. But there is situations where you can have your own standardized contract that you can then use going forward, although I normally don't recommend it. So, I mean, we deal with hundreds of these disputes every year, and we assist clients with the interpretation of them. And let's say, I think if I've got 5 clients a year that I say to them, okay, it's fine, I'll draft your contract, then it's a lot, because it's better, and of course it's a lot cheaper as well. If you look at a subcontractor agreement, I think the last time I think the JBCC subcontract is something like R600 that you pay for that subcontract agreement. And the other is a bit more expensive depending on where it is. But it compared to what you're going to pay for your own contract, I mean, you can't even compare the two. So that's why I would always prefer and advise the clients rather to use the standardized contract. And then on that is get a professional to assist you with interpretation of the contract, so that you fully understand what the contract says and what it means and what your rights and obligations are. I think we have probably spoken about it in the past as well, but the reason why people tend to fight, one of the major reasons, is because the one believes that the contract says he should go left and the other party believes the contract says he should go right. Now, I don't know if you've ever seen, there's a video that did the rounds many years ago of these 2 individuals, and they are looking at a bowling ball. Now, this bowling ball is hanging from the ceiling, and the one hand of the ball is painted black, and the other half of the ball is painted white. Now, if I can give sort of an example, or imagine this, the guy on the right-hand side, he's looking at this bowling ball and he can only see black. And the guy on the left hand is looking at the same bowling ball, but he can only see white. And they are ready to kill each other because the one says, but clearly the ball is white, and the other one says, clearly the ball is black. Now, in disputes, that a lot of times is what happens.
Yeah.
So somebody believes that this is what your obligations or your rights are, and then that's where the fight comes in. So it's very important to read your contract, that we've just spoken about a lot of the time. But also, if you don't understand something, ask it. I even tell my candidate attorneys, and you need to remember, these are people with LLB degrees. I say to them, there's no such thing as a stupid question.
Yeah.
If you're not 100% sure, rather ask the question. And there's another saying that says, the upside of asking a question, even if it's stupid, is you'll only ask it once. If you don't ask the question, you'll never know going forward.
Yeah. Some good advice there, Jaco. Very, very nice. And just finally, what can I do to ensure that my builder does his work properly?
Now, one of the things, if you look at the JBCC contract, is they talk about what we call a retention guarantee, and that is to withhold payment. So you enter into a contract with your contractor and you say to him, okay, I'm going to withhold 10% of my payment. Now, in the construction industry, depending on the size of the construction that you do, but there's normally trench payments. In other words, to make it simple, let's say there's about 10 invoices that you have to pay depending on where of the work he is. Now, if let's say he's erecting a wall, and you say, okay, but I'll pay you 1,000 rand for every 4 layers of the wall that you built. Then when you have to pay your first amount, deduct the 10% and keep that back. And then the next payment, keep 10% back, and the next payment, and the next payment, until the end. And then check that the work is properly done and that you are satisfied. And if you're satisfied, then pay over the last amount. Now, if a contractor tells you, but he can't afford you to withhold payment, then you must ask yourself if you really want this guy to be building or doing the renovations at your house, if he's not able to afford it. So that retention guarantee, have a retention guarantee. And then general advice, and I'm going to give free advertising to Hello Peter. Hello Peter is a wonderful thing. Go and look at Hello Peter, what other people says, and check references. But remember, references that somebody gives, I've never heard of anybody that, especially a contractor, that gives a reference of a building that went wrong. They'll only tell you and show the stuff that went right. So check your retention guarantee, make sure that your contract is in place. And then another big thing is that the contractors tend to, life happens, or the contractor himself or herself happens, and they tend not to finish in time. Have a penalty clause in there. Say to him, for every day that you're not finished, I'm going to charge you 1,000 rand or 500 rand, depending, or 10,000 rand, depending, of course, now on the value of the contract and that sort of thing. And have a specific date that it needs to be done. It doesn't mean that you have to enforce that clause. He might overrun 2 or 3 days and you can say, don't worry, man, you did such a good work. I'm happy, I'm not going to charge. But rather have that power with you. And again, if the guy doesn't want to sign a contract where there's a penalty clause, then you need to ask yourself the question, is this really the builder that I want working on my own? Because this construction disputes are very expensive. And if I'm talking very expensive, I'm not talking 10,000, 100,000. It can easily run into millions of rands.
Wow.
So it's really expensive because, I mean, you can imagine now the detail and everything that goes into depending on whether it's now a development. So I normally tell clients, look, unfortunately, unless the losses that you're looking is more than R1 million, then you're in trouble because otherwise the costs are just going to be too high. So that's why the old saying of prevention is better than cure. So make sure you've got the correct contracts in place. Use a JBCC contract with a master builder's agreement as well that they can use, which is even a bit smaller. But yeah, if your listeners have questions on that, let them pop me an email and I'll send them the addresses of JBCC or master builder's agreement. And rather use those contracts and rather pay a professional to give you advice on the interpretation of a contract than having to have somebody, let's say, redo your kitchen for 100,000 rand. And now they've made such a balls up that you need to get somebody else in for 100,000 rand. Rather pay a professional to give you legal advice and know that your contract is in place.
Some very good advice from you there today, Jaco Hamman from Hahn Hahn Attorneys. We appreciate it so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Ian. Always nice chatting you. Yeah, and good luck to all your listeners with your construction matters, and I hope all works out.
Thank you so much. Until next time.
Thanks, Ian. Bye-bye.
Are you or your business in trouble and struggling to find a solution? Call Hahn Hahn Attorneys as we assist clients in finding solutions. We specialize in consumer and food law, commercial and construction law, forensic investigations and administrative law. Visit hahnlaw.co.za. That's HAHN. We assist clients nationwide. Hahn Hahn Attorneys, because we care. Don't miss Legal Talk with Hahn Hahn Attorneys, Wednesday mornings at 10 on eRadio.